race would it be, and what would you do differently?
Oh, that is a very loaded question. That is actually really good. It's quite tricky because the way I process a lot of swims, I kind of work on what I could do better, and then work on, well, look at the swim as well, what I did do well, and then I kind of move on from it. So I've not really got any swims that I kind of wish I could go back and try and redo. I guess the one that I probably, if I really sit and think about it, would be the Olympic one from Rio. To try and finish third would be fab. But I don't quite know what I could have done to get any more out of it, because I knew that I tried my best. So I don't really know if changing it up would have made the outcome any more different. But no, that is a really, really good question. It kind of, it does get me thinking quite a fair bit. I can't really honestly say I can think of a race. I'd love to repeat races again without changing anything, like the race I did at the Commie Games in 2014. I really liked how I just completely threw my race plan out the window and just did something a bit different, and it, you know, paid off. It was a big risk, but it paid off. So yeah, so I can't fully answer your question. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Right. Oh, sorry. Next one, medal.
Okay, so how do you feel and deal with when things don't go as well as expected?
Aha, that is a very good question. So there's no real right or wrong way of doing it. There's no, well, do this, this, and this, and therefore you'll feel better for it. Everyone kind of has to go through it differently and kind of have to experience it themselves. For me, I guess it's, what's your version of success? Is it winning medals? Is it doing PBs? Or is it achieving processes? Because success doesn't always necessarily mean you win. For me, my race at the Olympics in 2016, for me was a big success, but I didn't come away with a medal. At the time, I thought it was a big failure because I didn't have that materialistic item that I so wanted. But the more I think about it, the more I realize it was actually probably one of the biggest successes I've ever had. It's the closest I've ever gotten to being on the podium. It was the fastest swim I'd ever done at an Olympic Games. So for me, there were a lot more successes from that. So if you don't achieve a goal or achieve a target, there are a lot of, I guess, you know, cheesy kind of quotes, you know, failure is first attempt in learning. And the URE, I think I've written it down somewhere. First attempt in learning unless reflection exists. And I think the reflection part is probably the most important thing. So if you don't achieve something, have a little sit and think about it. You know, okay, why didn't you achieve it? How could you make it better and maybe try and achieve it next time? And then move forward from it. So it's it's never really a straightforward process of being able to managing and dealing with disappointments. I mean, it took me 2 years to kind of figure out how to deal with Rio in 2016. So there's no time limit, but I think you just need to give yourself time, patience. It's only swimming. It's only swimming. And you've got the support of your teammates and your coach. So don't be afraid to speak to them and tell them how you feel. Because sometimes it is okay to tell your coach, you know what, I don't feel so great about that swim. And a little bit of reassurance and reminder that, you know, you are a really good swimmer. You will have some successes happen, you know, after this one. This one swim does not define who you are. So keep moving forward. So yeah, very good question. You guys have got awesome questions.
Right, next one, Megan.
How did you get into swimming?
Well, my dad first threw me in a pool when I was about 3. He taught me how to swim, but mainly for my own safety, to make sure that I was competent around water. And it just kind of grew up from there. I remember turning 8. I could not wait till I could turn 8. Because where we were, you had to be 8 years old to be able to go to a public session in your pool without parental supervision. I could not wait to get there. So I've always just loved being in the water. I had other activities. I could quite easily trip over on a flat floor. I've got very, very floppy feet. So I think physiologically I was probably just designed to be in water. I'm obviously not a very big swimmer, but I've made it work for me the best way I possibly can. So I kind of have my dad to thank for getting me in the water.
That's nice. Right, next one, Kirsty and Ailey.
You go. What do you like to eat before you swim?
So for racing or for competition? Sorry, racing or training? Those two things there.
Racing.
Racing. Okay. So 2 days before I race, I do what's called carbo loading. So a lot of my meals, I tend to be higher in carbohydrate. So maybe a little bit more pasta, a little bit more potato or rice. And those meals are kind of a bit more sort of carbohydrate based. So when it comes to competition, because sometimes I don't tend to feel that hungry either on race day or during racing, so it's important to make sure your body is fueled up 2 days beforehand, because it gives your body a chance to fuel up and get those energy stores topped up. So homemade lasagna, I love homemade lasagna. That's kind of one of my favorite meals to have. Spaghetti carbonara. On the morning of racing, I'll normally have maybe like a big bowl of porridge oats with some with some bananas and honey. And that's kind of a good slow release energy food, meaning if I don't feel too hungry whilst racing, I know that the oats can kind of help keep me through it, and I've got snacks as well to top up. So yeah.
We've lost the participants. There we go. Next one, Dylan Bleakley.
I've forgotten what one mine was.
Do you want me to remind you?
Yeah.
Were there any points when you wanted to give up, and what kept you going?
There was quite a couple of points. Probably the biggest one was after Rio, really, because I kind of felt I hadn't achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I just felt, what's the point? I've worked really hard and I can't come away with a medal in Olympic Games. It just doesn't feel like it's worth it anymore. Do I have it in me for another one? Probably not. So I was in kind of a bad place, and one of the things that actually kept me going was actually getting back in the water, but I refused to look at a stopwatch. So I asked my dad to not time me for a little bit, to basically just chuck the stopwatch and just let me swim, have fun in the water and just play with my technique. And I kind of had to keep asking myself the question of, why do I swim? Do I swim because I chase the medals, because I chase being on a podium? And if you had asked me that maybe like 5-6 years ago, I probably would have said, well, yeah, is that not the whole point of sport? And part of it, yeah. But for me, I kind of had to really dig deep and find out, well, why have I stuck out with it for so long? I mean, about 50, it's more than 15 years. And I kind of realized it's just simple. I genuinely just love being in the water, because being away from it, if I really thought about, do I want to quit? I kind of panicked. I kind of felt like I wasn't ready, and I kind of knew that wasn't the right thing. So we kind of thought, we'll change our focus a little bit and come back into training with a different mindset and just a different intensity. So it wasn't so focused on, you're going to get faster, you're going to get medals, you're going to get this, that, and the other. Let's have a different approach. Let's work on your efficiency and technically get better. Let's work off your turns. Let's work off your starts. Let's focus on one thing and do that one thing really well. Once we achieve it, let's move on to the next thing. So instead of trying to take on the whole world and trying to take on everything all at once to take on, I realized I could actually break down my swimming into smaller components, and that made me feel like I could manage it a lot better. And then because I kind of hadn't been through that before, I felt, well, I want the opportunity to at least try and see if this works. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm still around, because I just felt like I wasn't ready really to finish. And I kind of wanted to just try these different things. So when I finish my career, I kind of know that I can finish feeling like, you know what, I tried everything, and I can honestly say it was an honest effort. So yeah, there's those little bits. And also there's part of me as well that's incredibly stubborn. I think a few people were telling me they were expecting me to finish, and then I was just like, no, I'm finishing on my terms, not because you say so.
Good. Right, Lucy Foam. Oh, she's not on there.
Wait, me.
Not you yet. Other one. Other Lucy.
Who are you most competitive with?
Who I'm most competitive with? Probably myself. But it depends. I'm kind of competitive with everybody. Probably one of my biggest rivals in GB is Amy Wilmot. She is, one of Britain's best medley swimmers as well. And I'm very aware that it's Katie Shanahan coming through as well from Scotland, which is great. It's nice to see that's another medley swimmer, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'm keeping my eye on you. Yeah, and out with that, I guess it's just all those who, you know, race in the same event as me and go head to head with me, I'm going to be competitive with regardless. But at the same time, I know I can switch that off and still be friends with them when race mode isn't on. But yeah, I am quite competitive in quite a lot of things, even with my fiance. If he does something, I have to do it faster than him or better than him.
Good. Right. Clara and Mimi.
What other hobbies do you have apart from swimming?
Ooh, good one. At the moment, I love kind of basically learning Pilates. I've been working on it for the last 2 years to become a teacher. So kind of body movement, how the body moves and how you can make it flow. And I also did an online qualification, so I'm now qualified to teach suspension training, so TRX. And I'm trying to figure out at the moment how you can incorporate Pilates with suspension training. So it's pretty cool. So I kind of like working out body movements and how to basically get the most and the best out of your body, to, you know, as well to, you know, aid and improve your performance, but also to just give you a better general well-being, to make you feel happy. I did a Pilates class this morning called Spirals, which is basically kind of like Pilates, but it's more free-flowing and with dance music, and I have no coordination whatsoever. I used to do dancing, but that's well gone out the window. And it just made me feel so happy. Like I just felt so tall, so open, and so relaxed that I love trying to find workouts and exercises that make me feel like that, because I do feel a happy swimmer will always be a fast swimmer. And yes, you've got the hard graft, but if there's something that you can do that genuinely you look forward to because mentally it makes you feel better, or physically it makes you feel better, that's the main thing. So I quite like doing that. I also enjoy doing a bit of drawing. I've not done it for a fair bit, but doodling cartoons and colouring them in. Again, they have to be quite bright colours. I quite like the sort of vivid colours of cartoons. And attempting to bake, and I stress the word the attempt. Poor Ewan has been subjected for me trying to make these healthy tray bakes. And I can tell he's trying to be really nice and positive as he's trying to chew through what I've just made. So I'm kind of trying to get a bit better at that as well.
Good. Right, now Lucy Digg.
So how do you settle your nerves before a race?
That's a good one, actually. So everybody will find kind of their own way of doing it, and I guess the only way you'll kind of figure it out is if you just try different things and just kind of see what works for you. So for me, I quite enjoy music. I always try and find a different playlist for each competition that I go to, or maybe the sort of main focus ones. And breathing techniques as well. So sitting in the call room, if I can feel like I'm getting a bit stressed, normally you can tell because either my face tends to go quite red, you kind of get a little bit jittery. And nerves are good. Don't completely disregard that you have to be completely chilled. I think if every swimmer was chilled, everyone would just flop in the water and float. You do have to have a little bit of nerves, and the excited nerves, I think, is the best one. And it's human to feel nervous as well, so don't think it's bad being nervous. It is okay to feel a little bit of nerves, because it shows that you're, you know, anticipating something, you're focused in on it, and you want to do well in it. So, you know, you've got a sort of a keen eye for it. So the breathing side for me helps in that I breathe colours. So when I sit, I kind of feel like, right, okay, I'm starting to feel like these nerves are starting to get the better of me. I sit down, close my eyes, and I picture the colours, and normally what I see are reds, yellows, oranges, quite sort of like high energy colours. So as I breathe in, I imagine breathing in blue, purple, light green. So for me, those are calming colours. So as I breathe in those colours, I'm breathing out the orange, the reds, and the yellows. And for me, that whole visualization of the calming the sort of warm colors into cooler colors and just focusing a little bit on breathing, I can bring my heart rate down a little bit more just to make it a bit more controllable. And yeah, music's pretty good. If I could get a song that distracts me or gets me dancing a little bit, for me that's always a bit of a win.
I like the colours thing. That's quite good. Right. Emma Finlay.
What is your favourite Scottish pool?
Probably Tollcross. I think I was like 10 years old when I first started racing in Tollcross. So, you know, the year 2000, roughly, when I was racing there. So I have a lot of good memories from racing there. You know, I was able to successfully defend my Commonwealth title there. I made my 3rd Olympic Games there. Yeah, I've got a lot of good memories. I got a European bronze medal there as well. So Tollcross holds a lot of memories for me.
I will just say another one of Emma's, just here.
Yeah.
So Emma's, another of Emma's questions is, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm really controversial, yes.
It
I love
does.
Hawaiian pizza. Hawaiian pizza is one of my favourites.
It does.
I know I'm down on people's estimations now.
Yeah. Right, Ryan. So I'll just unmute Ryan.
What is your training schedule like in lockdown?
Oh, good question. So, 4 mornings a week, I do team Zoom sessions, so team bodyweight workout circuits with my squad. We tend to do that in the morning. I then go out for a walk with my dog. So we tend to kind of do a little bit of exercise, do a little bit of aerobic work by walking. Twice a week, I've got some weights in my flat at the moment, some kettlebells. So I do a little bit of strength training twice a week as best I can. And then I try and do a little bit of cardio work. I tried running, but my knees and my hips kind of weren't too happy with that. So I have a spin bike. So I kind of alternate between running and spinning as well. So just trying to do a little bit every day, mixing it up, mixing some heart rate intensity work, mobility stuff. So just trying to keep myself busy as best I can, but really trying to work on my mobility and flexibility. One thing I have noted is that a lot of swimmers are probably looking at phones a lot more, or screens. And if you look at your phone, everyone's posture tends to be like this. So your head goes forward, your shoulders are more rounded, and it puts a lot of strain through that. And what we want to do is try and stretch and open at the front, but work the muscles at the back. So for me in Pilates, I try and do a lot of swan dives, or I try and do a lot of reverse flies, or try and get the TheraBand to work, or TRX stuff to basically open out my chest and strengthen the muscles at the back to bring my shoulders back up. Because when you start swimming, you want to start in a good body alignment, because it takes pressure off joints, it reduces risk of injury, and also for general well-being as well. You don't get sore backs. If you're getting sore lower back, you're probably curving too much on your upper body. So just trying to work on that a little bit as well. So keeping myself busy keeps me out of trouble.
Right, next one is our club captain, Taylor. I'm trying to find you, Taylor. There you go.
What I sent to Johnny, but one I was going to ask was, who inspires you and why?
So my inspiration came from 2 people. Probably one from my dad. Apart from him chucking me in the pool from a young age, he has such a huge drive and passion and knowledge for swimming. I kind of feel that without that, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without that. And I've certainly learned a lot from him, and I think he's learned a lot from me. So I definitely know that I owe him quite a fair bit. But my other biggest inspiration is a lady called Misty Hyman. If you don't know who she is, make a note of her name and watch her race from the Sydney Olympic Games. It is one of my favorite races to watch. And it's not just, spoiler alert, it's not just the fact that she wins. It was her whole demeanor at the start. Every athlete that gets introduced looks so focused, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not saying you don't need to be focused. They were focused and they just weren't smiling, but they looked terrified as well. She was the only one, had her goggles up and just embraced the moment. She looks so happy in what she did, and how she executes the swim as well is just unbelievable. her underwater work, I dream of having underwater work like hers. She genuinely is like a fish, and she causes one of the biggest upsets in the games completely. And her reaction as well at the end is of honest general surprise. Like, I think she genuinely didn't think she was going to win. And for me, I just really kind of honed in on her personality and how she was. And I thought, God, if you could work at something to the point where you can stand up at that moment of when you have to perform, all you have to do is smile, because you can enjoy the ride. You can enjoy knowing that you've done all the work, knowing that there's nothing else you can do other than just taking in that moment. And for me, I really aspired to kind of be like that and to just enjoy what I do. And yeah, I just love her to bits. And my fiance actually surprised me for my 30th birthday day by actually getting to meet her. And I was like a 12-year-old kid. I was so excited. I got to do a couple of swim sessions with her, and she can still nail her underwater work. It is unreal. So she will always be my idol as a person and as a swimmer. Just the way who she is. She doesn't shout about what she's achieved. She, does a lot of talks, but people say Misty Hyman, and a lot of people be like, "Who's that?" And she just kind of keeps herself to herself, which is awesome. So yeah, so she's kind of my biggest inspiration.
We'll definitely share some of that race, the Sydney one. We'll share that around to all our swimmers. Right. Ailey and Brody didn't want to talk, so I'm going to say their question.
No worries.
So, what other sports did you do when you were younger, and was swimming always your first choice sport?
I did quite a fair few bits. I tried cross country running. Didn't last very long at that. It kind of had to do it with school and stuff, and because nobody else wanted to do it, and I was kind of the hardy nutcase that would be like, yeah, it's really tough, I'll go and do it. I've exercise-induced asthma as well, so when I ran, you could hear me running, not just because of my flat feet, but because of the sound I made trying to breathe. So it wasn't my thing to do. Played netball, shortest member on the team, but somehow always ended up as goalkeeper. I quite enjoyed that because I got voted player of the match one of the times because they thought I was like a Jack Russell. I just kept jumping up and down. We lost spectacularly because I always kept letting the ball going in. But my goodness, I tried really hard, and I think they could see that. Did a bit of dancing as well. But again, I kind of just picked swimming because I just felt more comfortable. I just lacked coordination on land, and I just felt so much more free and more coordinated in water. So yeah, why I stuck with it. And yeah, I think swimming was probably always my number one sport, just because there weren't that many people doing it in my class. So I always felt I had to be different. And because of that, I quite enjoyed it when I got to the school swimming lessons that everyone was doing widths, and I was like, hey, I can do lengths. So I always felt I had to just be that little bit different and a bit quirky.
Yeah, I guess with your dad as well, you had that influence as well.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to go to our coaches. Let's go head coach first, Danny.
I can't actually remember what I typed this morning, but I've got a few questions. Maybe Johnny will remind me what the one I submitted was. But if you could give any advice to these guys, what would it be?
So I've got three little bits. So the first one is the fundamental part is the first three letters. It's the fun. There is mental in it. Swimming is always mental, and that does come at some point within your career. But in order to be good at what you do, you have to enjoy it, even through the bad times, even through the really tough times, because why else would you stick with it? If you set your own alarm to get yourself up in the morning to take you to the pool and don't rely on your mom and dad, you're showing commitment and you're showing that you want to be there. So definitely have fun, but have fun when it counts. So I'm not saying go in and have, foam pool parties every time you go training, but you got to enjoy sometimes the tough training sets, enjoy pushing yourself and getting the most out of it. Because for me, I always enjoyed, as much as I hate 10 100s, I love the feeling of when I finished it, or 30 100s, or 10 200s fly, or something like that. The best feeling was always once you'd done it and you'd achieved it and stuck with it. The second bit of advice as well is listen to your coach and respect your coach, because they are the people that are there to push you. they're not there to make you have a fun time. They're there to make your life quite uncomfortable. One of the things that my dad always said was, I'm not here as, obviously there were sessions that were, he says, we are here to work, we are here to train, and I'm here to get the most out of you. So having respect for your coach, because they do know what they're talking about. They've worked with athletes, they've worked with people, they understand and they know the sport. So for me, I always had a lot of respect for my dad, and I think if you get that relationship well with your coach, it definitely does help. So if you're having those bad days, you can speak to your coach and just let them know how you feel, and that will help them as well coach you to the best of their ability to get the most out of you. And the last thing as well is try and be a student of your sport. How many of you guys watched the World Championships in Gwangju when it was shown? I mean, I think it was during the British summer meet, but
hands up.
Huh?
Put your hands up.
Yeah. So if I said who won the women's 200 backstroke, who knows? So I'm obviously not here to quiz you guys, but it's just little things like that. If you really want to get the most out of your sport, how much of it do you know? For a couple of guys in our squad, if we asked who broke the world record for the women's 200 backstroke, there'd be silence. But my dad could say, well, who was playing Aberdeen the other day? It was so and so, and the score was this, that, and the other. They know more about another sport than the one that they're committing their time to. So I'm not saying give yourself extra homework, but take a bit of interest in what it is that you guys do. Who holds world records? There are so many search tools out there. What are the best athletes your age doing in the world, and how long do they stay on point? Do they track well because they're growing tall? Or because there's a lot of kids when I was, say, 13, 14, who I thought, oh my God, they're so fast. I'm nowhere near that. But I then slowly kept myself going, kind of saw them as targets, and was able to kind of stick it out and go through it. And also, it means as well, if you guys get to go on a sport, you can answer questions for it, which is awesome. But yeah, it's just general interest and just general knowledge, because if you can learn so much from watching others, if you get to go to an Olympic trials, or if you get to go to nationals and you see the likes of Adam Peaty, he's more than just a world record holder. He's an athlete who knows his sport inside and out, and he only got to that level because he became a student of his sport. He researched, he knows what he needs to do to fuel himself, he knows what his competitors are doing. So if you want to get to that level, you kind of have to become a student of your sport as well. So yes, sorry, that was a very elongated answer to your question.
That was brilliant. Thank you.
We'll head to Andrew Ward now.
Right, okay, this is a bit of a loaded question to a few swimmers that are on here, because I really want them to listen to it.
Okay.
Is it the most important thing in the world to beat your personal best every time that you swim?
No. Do you want to know the last time I did a PB for my 400 IM? Does anyone want to have a guess?
2 years ago.
Yep. 3 years ago? No. It was in 2009. My PB is from 2009. So there's a certain point in which, yeah, you can enjoy touching the wall and seeing, oh, I've taken 5 seconds off. For me, if I touch the wall and I'm within 5 seconds, I'm delighted. It's about peaking at the right time. It's about getting to the point where, and this is again goes back to the relationship and talk you have with your coach and the trust that you have. Your coaches want you to try and get the best swim possible at the right time. There was a phrase that says you want to swim the right swim in the right pool, don't swim the right swim in the wrong pool. So it's all well and good if I decided to break the world record 3 weeks out from trials, but then don't PB at trials. What was the point in breaking the world record beforehand? To try and qualify for meets. So when you get to senior swimming, you have to be at your best in April, roughly when trials are, and then be at your best again in the summer. If you're still fresh and still PBing and firing off, there might be some little bits of progression and a bit of other physiological stuff happening, but ideally you should be swimming tired. Or if you've been honest with your training and consistent with your training, you should have a couple of meets where you don't PB, and that's fine, because you actually get a lot of training benefit from being able to race and race tough and race tired, so that when it comes to the moments of being fresh and racing at the meets where you're meant to race fast, you have a better appreciation for it. Personal bests sometimes become a little bit too much of a driving force. Yes, time is good and important in swimming, but it's not the main thing. Kind of goes back to my point of saying success isn't always about winning, and success isn't always about personal best times. My time that got me 4th at the Olympic Games wasn't a PB, but it still got me 4th in the world. So, you know, for you, you've got to try and train your body to the best of your ability so that when it comes to racing, you have no control over what your competitors do. You have no control over the outcome. The only thing you can do is give your 100% effort that you cannot give any more. And you leave it at that. And whatever time it gives you, that's what it gives you.
Right. We'll go ahead to the other Andrew then. Old Andrew. That's what we call him.
Old Andrew. The father of the poolside, Johnny.
Yeah. Or that. Sorry.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. I was going to ask a quick question. It sort of touched on something that Danny asked about advice you could give the swimmers, and I was thinking of more a specific piece of advice. And you might not have an answer for this because you've been in lockdown just like the rest of us. But I'm thinking about the kids haven't been in the pool for quite a long time, and it might be quite a while yet before they get back in the pool. So, any advice to them about how they might be feeling once they get back in for the first time? And I'm thinking even more maybe mentally than physically.
Yeah, it's going to be an emotional shock, a bit like the first 2-3 weeks. Like, I didn't really know where I was at with things. I felt like I was in a bit of a fog. You know, the first little bit, I kind of thought, oh, this is fine, you know, get on it, I'm going to do this, going to do that, going to do next thing. Second week, it was like, okay. And then by week 4, my energy levels and all that motivation dropped significantly. So I think by week 4 to week 6, it was a real struggle. And then it's kind of started to pick back up a little bit again. So you're probably going to go through a little bit of that getting back in the water. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awful swimming. Kind of mentally bracing myself for this. But it'll feel horrific. And this is probably the first, 2-3 months. Ignore the stopwatch. I think don't get yourselves bogged down on your times, because it is going to be everyone's going to be in a position where they've never been in before, having such a long break out from the pool. You're going to have maybe some moments where you're going to feel fast. Your short speed stuff, I always find getting back in after a break in the summer, the first week, yes, it feels rough, but I surprise myself sometimes with a couple of fast times in a couple of hundreds or 50s, and you're like, oh, actually, this feels great. Week 2, it's not too bad. Week 3, yeah, it feels awful. You kind of go, oh my God, what's happening here? And all it is your body adapting. So your bodies are going to have to adapt. And you've got, you spent a lot of time at the water, so it's got a lot of adaptation to go through. So you're going to have to be really, really patient. And it's okay to feel rubbish. It's okay to feel frustrated, and it's okay to feel down about it. But speak to your coaches when you get like that, or speak to your teammates. Don't sit there and kind of let it harbor. Make sure you speak out, because everybody's in this weird position. We don't really know how this is going to affect us. All we can do is the best that we possibly can. I think it's really important to focus on technique to start with. Rebuild that neural pathways, getting that movement back and the technique back, and then build upon your fitness. And you guys have, if you've maintained your fitness on land, it will transfer and help in the water, but you're just going to have to give yourself time. Swimming is a very slow sport, in that work that you do for 1 week will not transfer into a fast swim the next day. You probably won't see the work that you've done for that really tough week until 6 months down the line, assuming you've been consistent and not missed any training and you've been consistently working tough. So yeah, it's going to be tough getting back in it. All I can suggest is just keep talking. Even if you guys, want to message me on social media, you're more than welcome to do that, and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. But just brace yourself. It's going to feel odd, and don't get bogged down with times and numbers. Get technique done first. Your speed is affected by technique, basically. If you can get good technique, your speed will come eventually. But yeah, don't stress about your times.
Thank you.
This is from another Hannah who couldn't come in today, but how would you see swimming develop in Scotland in the next 10 years?
Oh, wow. So like, where do I see it going, or?
Where do you see it going?
It's kind of hard to say. I think before we had lockdown, I think it was on the up. I think we had a lot of good, especially female swimmers coming through. I kind of seen like Project Elsa come through, and I know that there was a push now to try and get the boys to come through, and I think there was a bit of a drive force for that. But I certainly think that, you know, we're starting to get more and more team members coming onto GB teams and, you know, becoming a bit more of a driving force at, you know, Commonwealth Games. So we might be a small nation, but we do pack a punch with the quality and the level of athletes that we've got. So I think in 10 years' time, before lockdown, I would have said that we certainly will be on the rise of getting some pretty outstanding swimmers. After lockdown, I don't know, we might actually even have a better chance of getting some more swimmers coming through, because there's going to be a lot of you guys who will have gone through an incredible growth spurt from having this rest. You guys will be so much taller because you'll have had longer sleep, you'll have had more chance to eat. You obviously may still have a bit of stress with school, but don't underestimate the sort of power of being able to grow. We actually get a wave of swimmers coming through who are actually going to be incredibly tall. But yeah, I think Scottish swimming is definitely doing something right at the moment and get on the way up. There's still obviously things that I think could improve, but at the same time, it's nice to see that I think there are systems in place that seem to be kind of, you know, hopefully going towards the right direction. I'm not 100% sure how to finish off that question. It feels like it's one of these open-ended ones that kind of you can keep discussing for ages.
I think we'll do one more final question, and for me, it's my question now. That how did you balance when you were younger? How did you balance schoolwork with swimming?
My dad was incredible with his Excel spreadsheets, and he would always try and create a timetable, basically a planner. And as much as it was a pain in the butt at the time, it actually was a really good thing because it allowed me to plan out when I was training, when I was at school, and opportunities that I had to try and get my schoolwork done. I would spend a lot of my lunchtime period in the library. I'm a bit of an introvert. I kind of would quite happily just sit and read books in the library, then I would go outside. But for me, I saw that as an opportunity of getting my homework done, because once I finished training after school, it meant I had a free evening, or it gave me more time to finish off studies. So it was difficult, but I managed it by basically just committing to the task of being like, right, I need to get good grades. Would sometimes try and set up study groups with some of the swimmers or some of my friends to try and kind of help each other out so that I could still get a bit of a social side, but it was with purpose in that I was getting some study done. I didn't always get it right. My advanced higher biology, I completely flunked the prelim. I kind of thought I knew it all, and I was like, it's fine, I know what I'm talking about. Turns out I didn't. So that was a huge kick up the butt. I failed the prelim spectacularly, to the point where I think they almost didn't let me sit the final exam. So I had to really prove myself, and I had to really get my finger out to kind of prove that I did know it. And I ended up coming away with a B, which was a big jump from a complete and utter fail. So yeah, I kind of had to be really committed. And it's tough because obviously you want to do well in swimming and you want to do well in school, and always make sure that, you know, schoolwork is important because you want to be able to go on. You know, swimming doesn't last forever, but swimming did help and give me a bit sense of routine. And when it came to exams as well, I didn't miss any training because I felt if I missed morning training, my routine was off and I wasn't as awake or as ready for the exams in the morning. So sometimes having the exam that day and training in the morning, even if I got out maybe half an hour earlier, just that process of getting up, I did feel a little bit more relaxed because I could get out my nervous energy through swimming. And then it meant that I was, somebody waving in the background there. Yeah. It meant I was, ready for my exam. And even, you know, the night before, I always made sure that I still swam before the exam, because if you got last minute cramming, if you feel like you've got to miss a session to study, you kind of miss the boat. You know, the study should have been done a long time beforehand, so you shouldn't feel the need to miss it. But obviously, if you're under pressure and you feel you have to, then you have to. But I tried to make a point that I didn't. I even made some of my study notes and laminated them and actually took them to the pool, gave them to my dad to ask me questions, because there was a couple of us on the same subject, so he would ask us questions during a kick set. or before a speed set, he would fire a question and we had to answer it and dive in and sprint, or little things like that kind of got us thinking during our sessions. So it was tough, but definitely having a timetable so you can schedule when you can study, but also when you can take a break, and then make sure you plan those breaks so that break that maybe is 1 hour doesn't turn into 3 hours. So it's a balancing act, and one that, I didn't get right every time, but a little bit of structure kind of helps.
Yeah, I'd say it's been brilliant listening to you today, and I think speaking on all of Musselburgh, you've definitely answered a lot of our questions. I don't know if Danny, you've got to say anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely superb, and thanks again for doing it. And one of your earlier answers, you mentioned that happy swimmers are fast swimmers, and I don't know how much research you've done, but that's kind of our adopted motto at Musselburgh. So I think for someone of your stature and all you've achieved in the sport, I think that'll go a long way for these guys and the wider club when we put it up on social media as well. So thank you.
Awesome, no worries. Well, thank you for your questions. Your questions were awesome. Really got me thinking. Which is brilliant.
Well yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome, great job,
thank
guys.
You.
Hopefully see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.